Welcome to Sun CSA Table, where we listen, we learn, but we also connect. I'll be your host, Edgar Okoth-Onyango. I'm the Executive Director at Scaling Up Nutrition Civil Society Alliance. And today we are taking a different angle, and we are looking at intergenerational conversation on issues of breastfeeding. And I will call it having an intergenerational conclave on breastfeeding. When a woman has a baby or bring forth a baby, it's not only the baby that comes. The woman carries a lot of information, a lot of beliefs that she gets from the people before her. And that's why today we are here with distinguished guests who are also experts to help us navigate through this so that we really get to know what is true and what is not true. What is it that we need to carry forward and what is it that we need to be able to drop. But before we really dig deep into the conversation, allow me to give them an opportunity to also introduce themselves. So I'll start from my extreme right. Yes.
Okay, my name is Claire Kamau. I'm a nurse by profession, and I'm also in the Kenya Association for Breastfeeding Executive Board, and I'm happy to be here. I'm a mother, and I'm very passionate about lactation support.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much, Claire, and welcome. So you bring forth both technical experience, but also human experience because you've gone through it. Yes, so I hope you're going to have a very beautiful conversation. Yes.
Okay, my name is Esther Mokusu. I'm a nutritionist by profession, and I've had an interest, a technical experience in the area of breastfeeding for quite a long time. I've engaged in policy development, I've engaged in curriculum development, in capacity building of healthcare providers who support mothers to breastfeed, and also in governance. I also am the Director of Nutrition, Wellness and the School Feeding Program in Nairobi City County. So that places me at a position of decision making and also advocating for budgets to be able to support breastfeeding.
Yeah, thank you so much, Claire, and thank you so much, Esther. So on issues of breastfeeding, usually there are a lot of myths. People have different experiences, and sometimes these experiences, this advice, end up turning to fears. And we've had two episodes. So we had the first episode with men different ages, then the second episode with women also different ages. And they talked about some of the fears that they have, some of the myths that they have. Some of them have been carried from generation to generation. As we are seated here today, why do you think this conversation of intergenerational issues of breastfeeding is important? Or do you think it's not important? Let me start with Esther.
Thank you, Edgar. I think the intergenerational conversation around breastfeeding is very important because in the past, there was a lot of social and community support. In fact, babies were raised by the village. And when a woman delivered, we had the mother-in-law, the aunties, and everybody around the family and the community actually coming around to support. However, with time we have realized that some of the practices that were there then were not, they didn't have a scientific backing. For example, giving children, prelacteal feeds. And these prelacteal feeds would come.
So what are prelacteal feeds?
Okay, so prelacteal feeds are there used to be either foodstuffs or some herbs or some animal fat or honey or something that was given to the baby as soon as they were born before they were placed on the mother's breast. And so with time, we realized that scientifically, this has no backing absolutely. And in fact, they do a lot of damage to the baby instead of doing any good. And so as we have now come to the realization that that first milk, you know, they used to say it was dirty. They used to say it would make the baby to diarrhea. So over time, then we've come to realize that this is actually the good milk that is going to help the baby pass out the first two. You know, the baby normally passes out the first two that we call meconium. That if it is not passed, then it makes the baby to have the yellow discoloration that is called jaundice. And that would make the baby to be hospitalized. Okay? And also that milk is actually, it has very good anti-infective properties, so it prevents against disease. It is high in protein, so it helps the baby to grow very fast within the first few days. And it also has a lot of you know, like the vitamin A that helps to strengthen the immunity of the baby. And also even for the mother, when we start breastfeeding the baby right away, it activates the hormones. We have two hormones that are used in breastfeeding. We have the oxytocin hormone and we have a prolactin hormone. When oxytocin hormone is activated, it helps even to shrink the uterus right at birth, so that it prevents the bleeding of the mothers at delivery. So from that one act of initiating breastfeeding, we are introducing the good milk that is called colostrum. We are also preventing, you know, the bad activities and acts and behavior of giving different items to the baby before we put the baby to the breast, and all those other that people believed in the olden days about the diarrhea and the disease causing, then they have no place. And right now, we know that when babies are started on that breast milk early, then they're going to turn out more healthier. And that is why we say that breastfeeding is actually the best start in life. So we don't start with immunization, we start with breast milk.
So breastfeeding is the best start in life. It's the best investment that you can make to a baby. So just walk us through in terms of what is breastfeeding.
Breastfeeding is the exchange of milk from the mother to the baby through the breast, which is controlled by the hormones, as my colleague has mentioned, and also has a lot to do with the brain, how comfortable emotionally is the mother. It will also dictate the flow of the milk, how comfortable is the baby, and the positioning, that is very important, and whether the breast is also in good order. There is no pain, there are no cracks, there is no engorgement, there is no infection. So all these things come into play. And there is also what we call chest feeding, which is what can be used by those supporting the mother to feed the baby. Assuming the father is around and there is milk already expressed, then they can use a cup and spoon and place the baby on the chest like they're breastfeeding, but then the same position, but then they are using the cup and spoon.
Okay, so we have breastfeeding
and chest feeding.
And we have chest feeding.
Yeah.
I think it's good that we get to know the two, because many times people talk about breastfeeding and then they combine both. Yes, so I think it's clear. We have breastfeeding and then we have chest feeding.
Yeah.
So still with you, Claire, what are some of the myths that you want to talk about in terms of that will hinder breastfeeding, but they are actually true?
There are some communities that believe one breast should be left for the father.
Okay.
I think that should be totally be ignored. The milk belongs to the baby. And if, like she has mentioned, the first milk, actually that connection should be within the first minute. The minute the cord, even before the cord is cut, the minute the baby comes out, they should be directly taken to the breast. So I know there are some of fathers who again will say the baby gets when they breastfeed for long, they get what is the word I'm looking for? They're not smart. Is the word I'm looking for. Like when they prolong the breastfeeding, which we need it at least 2 to 3 years. The first 1,000 days, very important. It is important that the fathers and the community allows that to happen. It is not true that the baby does not develop mentally the longer they breastfeed. Yeah, so that's also a myth that we need to talk about here and now. Let the baby breastfeed, if possible, up to 3 years on the minimum.
Yeah, so fathers, the other breast is not yours. Both breasts are for the baby. Now, Esther, there are instances when a baby cannot breastfeed within the first minute when they're born. So let's say a mother has gone through cesarean, or the mother unfortunately passes while giving birth. What can we do to ensure that we protect breastfeeding, but also ensure that this child gets the breast milk up to 6 months? Is it even possible? And also talk about the women who need to go back to work.
Okay. So you've talked about mothers who develop complications as soon as they deliver. We have the unfortunate events where a mother could lose her life and leave the baby behind, and also mothers who are going back to work after having breastfed for a short while. So let me start with the mothers who develop complications at birth. So cesarean mothers, that is not a complication. It is a medical choice. It's a clinical choice that is made depending on how the mother is presenting during her labor. And so as soon as that is done and the mother is stable, then the mother is able to put her baby to the breast if everything is okay. Initially, the time for lactation used to be 30 minutes. We used to say within 30 minutes. But then because of inclusion of the mothers who are delivering through cesarean section, because we have to give them time to recover from the anesthesia, so it was extended to 1 hour. So most of the women, they don't deliver under general anesthesia, like that one that makes them slip away. They develop under, they deliver under what we call epidural. It is half their body that is actually that the anesthesia is working. So she's alert and she's able to see whatever is happening and even interact with her baby. So once the baby is delivered, okay, just like a normal delivery, because it is her lower body that the surgeon and the obs-gyn is working on, then the baby can be placed in skin-to-skin contact as they continue stitching her and all, so that she can continue interacting with her baby. And something interesting about babies, once they're placed in skin-to-skin contact with their mothers, they have this natural urge and they actually swim. We normally say they swim towards the breast of the mother. Why would they do that? Because the smell of the fluid where the baby was, that's within the amniotic fluid, has a similar smell to the smell that is coming from the mother's breast. And so the baby actually moves towards the mother's breast to be able to engage. And so that initial bond and attachment is very practical. And it sounds miraculous, but it's actually something that is practical. Number two, for mothers who lose their lives at birth. So we have, and World Health Organization actually says that the best choice for a baby is to have access to their mother's own milk. But where they don't have access to their mother's own milk, then we have what we call donor human milk, okay, which is the next best choice, which is milk that has been donated by another woman. It has been pasteurized, so it is safe for use. And so this can actually be given to this baby and help them to have a human milk diet. So that is something that we already have in Kenya. We have one human milk bank, which is in Pumwani Maternity Hospital, and currently it is serving facilities, public hospitals in Nairobi, and it has actually worked. So it has been in pilot since 2018, and so far so good. We are ready for scale up. So just waiting for the green light so that we can be able to expand outward. You also mentioned about the women who are going back to work. So once a woman delivers, I urge them that they start expressing and storing their breast milk. Why do we express and store breast milk? Because we want to build reserves that can be used when the mother is away. It does not mean that if you have a baby or you have delivered a baby, then you're literally tied in the house and you cannot engage in any other activity. So, and as soon as the mother delivers, the hormones actually come into place. I talked about the two hormones initially. So we have the prolactin, that is what helps to produce the milk, and the oxytocin hormone that helps in the letdown, of the milk. So these hormones actually come into place immediately. When a mother is breastfeeding her baby, if she places her baby on the breast on one side, the other breast is also producing milk. So if she has a breast pump, she can actually place it there and continue expressing as she breastfeeds the baby on that one side. Okay? And as she keeps that in stock, if she has a good freezer, she needs to have a good freezer that is only going to be dedicated to storing that milk. And breast milk that is frozen can last up to 6 months, and it is going to be safe for consumption. And so when she goes back to work, what does she need to do? So she needs to continue breastfeeding as usual, but while she's at work, she needs to be encouraged to continue also expressing her breast milk while she's at work. And by law, that's the Health Act of 2017, every workplace is supposed to have set aside a lactation room where the mother is able to, access, privacy, and probably some warm water, sink, and where she can clean her hands and express her milk, and probably some storage facility so that she stores her milk there, and when she's ready to leave to go home, she can carry it home with her. So when she does that, she builds on her stock. What else does she do? She's going to help the continued production of her milk, because then if she does not continue producing her milk, we are going to have a reduction in the supply. So mothers who are going back to work, let us not have an excuse that we can introduce other feeds before going back to work. It is practical to be able to breastfeed your baby while you are away. So while you are at home, breastfeed. Breastfeed, especially at night, it is highly encouraged. And for that, we encourage mothers to actually sleep with their babies so that there's an interrupted sleep, and also breastfeeding of the baby. Express before you leave, express while you're at work, and let somebody else actually feed the baby on your breast milk.
Those are not my words, that's from the expert. It's possible, let's make it possible. And there is nothing that can block a baby from breastfeeding. There's no condition that can block a baby from getting breast milk for 6 months. We've talked about the baby, we've talked about the mother. So there's this other agenda that I want us to talk a little bit more, and the role of the men, the role of the boys, the role of the grandfather, the role of the brothers, all of them, the male category.
Okay.
Yes. So, Claire, what is the role of the man or the male companion in terms of promoting breastfeeding?
All right.
And where can they get information about breastfeeding?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me start with where they can get information. We do have a group of lactation educators, and we do give sessions even before. We prefer to teach the parents before the babies are born. Yeah, both mother and father. Yeah, so of course at our website at the Kenya Association for Breastfeeding, that can be availed. we can always support. However, going to the role of the partner, his role begins way before delivery.
Okay.
It actually begins at conception. The support emotionally of this mother will dictate how the baby develops. And then after delivery, or even just before delivery, he's part of the preparation process. He needs to make sure that anything they need before delivery, the bag is ready. There's usually a list that we guide at the antenatal clinics, and he should always accompany this mother to the clinics. That way he's able to ask questions and flow and not be caught unawares of any circumstances around the mother and the baby. Once the delivery happens, the part of pumping while the mother is breastfeeding is part of what the partner can help us with. So the partner's role is more of a helper and for moral support. Because the minute you're there, even the hormones, the emotions, the balance, just your presence makes that mother calm down, and once she's calmed down, our milk will flow. However, one thing we like emphasizing, let it not be that he's taken his paternity leave, but he's out there with friends. Or the mother now decides that's when I will send him to the shop one item after another. So we need, for those 2 weeks of paternity leave, the father, the mother, and the baby to be together as much as possible. If he's got to be sent for an errand, let it be a whole list, and then he's back home. But when he's back home, the mother's role is to feed the baby, eat, rest, and the cycle continues. So anything, breastfeed, eat, and rest.
Okay.
Yeah. Of course, in the rest is the showering part of it, for the
so
mother.
The chores are...
So the mother's mind needs to be just herself, the baby, and their nutrition. So now the father comes in on the outside. What happens? She needs some water. She needs some cup of tea. Is she there? And maybe she's from a cesarean section. So even movement, she may need help to wake up. That's when we need the man there. We need, the water is a bit far. We need you to help us to get
these guys are smiling, so...
No, this is true. It is not so difficult. It's those little gestures of support is what works the magic, actually, Then as the baby progresses, there's the going to the clinic. He needs to be part of it to understand even the baby's growth. Then as they get vaccinated, by week 6 now, they can actually now start going out with the wife. Like life can start getting back to normal. And that is where Esther has said the expression of milk needed to have started before. Because if you need to take your wife out, you don't want to expose the baby out there. So whoever is left behind needs to have the right milk, not the formula milk. So long as the mother is able to express, we want the baby to be fed with the breast milk. Then of course there's the role of the relatives and the friends who want to come. His role is also to protect the environment. And in case they have an older baby, he's also the one to make sure now this baby who was used to the mother's attention is also well managed, so that the flow is not interrupted as she's trying to take care of this smaller one. Finally, that it is important that his presence also encourages intimacy at around between 4 to 6 weeks after delivery. But he needs to understand that there's all this fear. There is, of course, if there are injuries, they need to make sure they are well healed. So they try getting back to intimacy at a slow pace until they're both comfortable.
So the man really plays
A
I
very
think
big role.
from what you highlighted, the man plays actually the bigger role
Yes.
in terms of
And actually,
supporting.
they
Yeah.
tend to, because the men, especially the African, the culture, you're not supposed to show a negative fear or emotions.
Mhm.
They tend to get into postnatal depression even more than the ladies because they're trying to cover for both.
Mm.
They're not sure what to do, and they're not talking about it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we want the men to come out. We are here to support. Call us before the baby comes so that at least you know what to do. Then that emotional negativity will not come.
So the magic here is that the man needs to accompany the woman
Understand
to
everything
understand
that's happening to her.
everything from
Yeah.
conception
Mm.
to the clinics,
Mhm.
when the baby comes,
Yes.
and then now you become now the pillar of strength.
Yes.
When now to support breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Breast
To
feeding,
support the fourth trimester, we call it.
Okay. Okay.
We call it the fourth trimester after delivery.
So the fourth trimester. So these 3 months are really critical.
Very critical.
Because this is where now you also start to introduce intimacy.
Intimacy, that's when you introduce quite a number of things there.
Okay.
Yeah, so he needs to be part of the mix.
Mhm.
That's a lot. So the men, unasikia maneno. Yeah.
Okay, so
You play more.
Yeah.
Yes, Esther.
So maybe something else that I'd like to add,
Mm.
in terms of male involvement and male support. So information is key, and it will be important that they access this information from, like an expert,
Yeah.
as opposed to getting it from social media
Yeah.
or getting it from their peers.
Mhm.
Because what we've realized is that when they get this information from out there, then some of them is a lot of it is misleading.
Yeah.
So for them to be very useful and helpful, it's important that they get in touch. As Claire has said, they'll work with the wife or the partner through the clinics, through the antenatal clinics, through delivery, and also through the clinics for the baby, so for the immunization. And while they go to the immunization clinics, there's also what we call the postnatal care clinics. Okay, it's not always about immunization, but they're postnatal care clinics where both the mother and the baby are going to be assessed to ensure that they're actually doing well. And so something else about going with the baby to work. I like that Claire has said that life must continue. Who say that it's the lady who must actually take care of the baby? We have places where, like I know Safaricom, Mabati Rolling Mills, they have cliches where you can come back to work with your baby. And as long as there's express breast milk and the baby is able to be fed. So anyone can feed the baby. So they are normally carers and the baby can go and interact with the other baby socially. And the man would come into work if he's the one who is working in such a place. Come in with the milk and it's placed somewhere. When it's time to feed, he can actually come, play, interact, feed the baby, and goes back to work. So it is never 100% a woman's job to take care of the baby. It is also a man's job to also take care of the baby. If he has a conducive environment so that he can allow the wife to also either recuperate or attend to other activities, while he also takes care of the baby the other side, then so be it. So it's not about the shopping, it is not about the manual work or taking care of the other babies, but it is actually taking care of this young baby, and they can be able to do that. They can even pick the baby and go out with the baby. As long as they have the milk to be able to feed the baby, they can carry the containers and be able to, the milk that has been expressed by the mother, and they go with it and they are able to interact and allow the mother to also rest or attend to other activities.
Now, this is the Sans CSA table where we listen, we learn, and we connect. And there are certain things that happen, or maybe I would say the current generation that we are having, there are certain fears that they have. And that's why I want us to be jumping from the previous generation now to the current generation. So one of the things is about keeping shape and breasts falling. And the other one is giving birth, they will die. Yeah. So, and I know there are certain cultures that we can borrow from the previous generation moving into the current generation. So, Claire, when you're talking about the shape, when you're talking about the breast falling, and that's why they don't want to breastfeed, what's your comment on that?
Yeah, that belief is there, but it is an error because the breast enlarges as the body is preparing it for milk production. And so long as those two hormones are activated, the mammary glands will feel full and will of course become larger. And the more that you have, the more the milk that you produce. However, as you continue breastfeeding, then the extra fat that had grown around your body parts again starts getting utilized to make the milk, and you eventually get back to shape. So the secret to get back to shape is to breastfeed more and more. Yeah. And remember, there's some aspects of the breast milk that you cannot find in the formula milk for those who opt to give formula milk instead of breastfeeding. So you'll be doing that child a disservice by failing to give what you naturally have, and you choose to suppress, because there are those who buy medication to suppress that and put the baby on formula direct because they do not want those enlarged breasts, but they go back to normal after some time. Yeah. And of course, we do have supportive garments to keep them from falling. Of course, with gravity, we don't hold them well, they will definitely sag. So we do have mother breastfeeding friendly garments that hold them in place. And this is just for a short period of time. And you're building generations. So just for those few months, those few years, allow us to have those breasts for the baby. And then we'll get them back to shape. Then we have exercises. Yeah, we have exercises to firm up the muscles. And so with that, we just need to have the right advice. After the nurses give you and the doctor gives you a go ahead to get back to doing some exercises, there are exercises you can just do at home, and they will make those muscles get back to their usual firmness. Yeah.
Yeah, so to the young generation, they go back to normal. So
They do.
Don't worry. Don't worry. The expert has said she has experience in that, so don't worry about them falling. But she has also said gravity will have to play a role. Eventually, they'll have to follow gravity. So, Esther, does size matter in terms of the size of the breast? Or it really doesn't?
Okay, when we talk about the anatomy of the breast, human anatomy basically, or the body shape and size of people is actually a biological function. When we talk about the breast and how it is formed, the basic function and the formation inside and outside is very typical. But then we have varying size, and the variation in size is going to be because of what we call the breast tissue. The breast tissue will normally be composed of muscle and also fat. As a woman nears delivery, normally the hormones will be activated and her breast will enlarge. In fact, one of the things that we assess in pregnant women is enlargement of the breast. Because then if the breasts don't enlarge when a woman is pregnant, then there's a problem. And the reason they enlarge is within the breast, we have what we call the milk secreting cells. Okay? Those milk secreting cells must start producing milk in readiness for the baby who is going to arrive. And we have ducts, which must open up and they start preparing themselves. And if we are very keen around the anatomy or the shape of the breast of a woman, at the front it is not very smooth. So we have the darker part that actually produces some oily substance that is a gland that produces some oily substance that is actually going to lubricate that part so that when the baby breastfeeds, it does not get very dry, and so we don't get cracked nipples. A lot of the women who get cracked nipples is because they do extra cleaning and keep that part dry. And within the breast, we have what we have the ducts that are small tubes that bring the milk from where it is being secreted, and to the front part where we have what we call the larger ducts, which is normally like the temporary holding area before the milk is actually suckled out through the nipple. But then once a woman delivers and her breast had prepared itself for production of breast milk, then everything goes into place. And just as Claire has said, breast milk is a body fluid, and it is the mother's nutrient reserves and the fat and the protein and her muscle that is used to actually produce this particular beautiful substance that is very nutritious that we are calling breast milk. So the mother needs to feed well for her to be able to produce the breast milk. And a lot of times people say that any woman can breastfeed. Yes, any woman can breastfeed. But then what is the quality of that breast milk that she's giving to her baby? For example, we have some nutrients which the baby can only, we can only add into the child's diet after the age of 6 months. Before that, the baby either builds reserves, for example, iron. They build reserves within their own body that they are able to utilize before the age of 6 months. But then, like vitamin A, they will need to get it from the mother's milk for the first 6 months before we supplement them at the age of 6 months. So that means that the mother also has to be in good nutritional shape so that she's able to give a good quality breast milk to the baby. So it is not all milks that will be the same. The quality is going to depend on the nutritional status also of the mother. So that is why maternal nutrition is very important. So one of the things the family, the partner, and the community needs to support is to support the mother to have good nutrition. And that is why in the olden days, women would really prepare for their pregnancy, okay? While they're pregnant, they would actually grow particular foods and say, once I deliver my baby, I will have this, I will have this. They would grow food. They would have some legumes. They would probably grow some pumpkin. They would actually grow food and vegetables that would be available for them to be able to eat that time after they have delivered their baby. And even stock up and save a little money and look for support, especially in terms of the manual work around the house. They would probably bring over a relative who is coming over to help. So those are things that happened in those days. But it seems like these days, we do not even want people around us, okay? We want this privacy that I don't know what that privacy is. Because as a new mom, you really need a lot of hands and a lot of support around you. And there's something else that you asked about, what has changed, or the fears. We have our young people who would say, yes, I want to get married, but I don't want children.
Okay.
In the olden days, it was typical that a woman grew from one stage to another. Once you're done with school, then the next stage was what? To get married. In fact, I remember after I finished, when I was in university, I would go home and I would meet my mom's friends and they will ask, so where did you go to cook? So from where I come from, getting married, typically the respectful way of saying it is, where did you go to cook? Like, whom are you cooking for? Because you go to cook for a husband. So typically all girls were expected to, at some point after they are done with their formal schooling, Then they would go somewhere to go and cook. And so you go and cook and you get children for your husband. And that was the typical way of, that was the typical lifestyle. But these days we see women who are getting even their children and they do not even have partners. And some of them are actually getting their babies much later. Okay, we're having a lot of mature moms. Them days we used to have very young mothers. Okay, by the age of 18, someone already has 2, 3 children.
Okay.
So by 25, they have lots of children and probably should be finishing up around delivery of children. So there's a shift in how motherhood is being perceived. Okay, and then it looked like it was much easier, and there was no hassle about it. But right now, we have a lot of our mothers who are working mothers. So then it is something that we must also have a mind shift and now see where do we target our support to. We need to look towards the working mother, because now we have a working mother who is having a baby. She's more mature than our previous mothers, and so she's probably at a position of leadership. Is she going to interrupt her leadership role to take care of a baby? Let me just talk about this incident that happened last year. We had one of our female governors in this country actually get a baby. I don't know if it was last year or the other year. And we saw a lot of uproar. Is it her role? Have we put her in that position to continue getting babies, or is she going to lead our county? It sort of bordered on a very unpleasant and, can I say, totally disrespectful manner, because then as a woman she has a right to get her babies, but then considering she's in a leadership role, it keeps her in a very awkward position. So let us recognize that we have mothers who are working mothers, not just working, but in very serious positions. And just to encourage the young people too, we have support out here. You can be able to do your work while you can even be able to go out. You know, I hear people go out. I don't want to stop going out. So this going out, just express your milk, leave the carer, okay, to take care of the baby, but they have your milk behind so that they can continue feeding your baby. However, let us also be very vigilant around what we consume as mothers, because everything that you consume is passed on to your baby, be it alcohol, be it any drug. Okay? So while we have the concept of going out, let us also be very careful about what else we put in our bodies, because once you accept to be a mom, then you need to know that the life of this child depends on you. And if you are going to put it any substances that are probably not okay with the baby, then they may have some lifelong effects. And so let's give ourselves time. Let us parent, and the time for the enjoyment will probably come, so that we can be able to let them now have the best of their lives.
Yeah, thank you, Esther. And you said really a number of nice and beautiful things that I believe we can pass on to the current generation, to the next generation. One is about preparation. Before, people used to prepare, yes, for the pregnancy, for the coming of the baby, and for the breastfeeding, because they knew in terms of the kind of energy and the nutrients that they needed. So they had to prepare that early. So one of the things is, let's us prepare. From the older generation, information that is coming to our generation is preparation is really critical. Number two is about family support. In the older generation, a child belonged to the community. But these days, we want to parent children. These are our children. Don't touch my child, you know. Yes, I think it's about opening it up a little bit to ensure that the community or the society that we live in also support in terms of just ensuring that the child is brought up well. And this is also governing breastfeeding. And it's about having that support system. You know? Number three is about not being afraid. So I think it's about, let's also allow us as parents to not be afraid of getting children. Yeah, because having a baby is a way or a stage in life. Yeah, so that stage also we also need to go through that stage. So as we come to the close of this, we've talked about the mother, we've talked about the male companion or the father or the males in supporting breastfeeding. So let's talk about government, because this is it's like an arambe. All of us need to put all our heads together, all our resources together. So I'd like to hear from you, Esther, then I go to Blair, in terms of what are the kind of mechanisms that government has put in place to support exclusive breastfeeding and continued breastfeeding. Because when you look at statistics, I think we've gone a little bit lower. Kidogo. I think 1% lower. Are there mechanisms that government has put in place, policies, guidelines, laws to support exclusive breastfeeding?
Okay, the government has put in place laws governing
And you can
breastfeeding
just talk about some of them.
and protection of breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Let me give a good example of, initially I mentioned the Health Act
Yeah.
2017. And that is an act that actually talks about support for the lactating woman or a breastfeeding woman. And it has said it in a manner that suggests that there needs to be space set aside for a working woman to be able to express her breast milk at work, have a storage facility where she can keep it. Further, if the organization is able to set aside space to create like a daycare center that the woman can be able to come with her baby to the workplace and be able to visit them time and again. It has also mentioned the issue of having flexible working hours for breastfeeding women. Because when you're breastfeeding, you are also expressing milk for your baby. So you may actually negotiate with your employer that you can either come in slightly late, check out early, or you can come in early and check out early again. But also, it will be important that we take cognizance of the fact that we have the Maternity Protection Act that allows women to be away. It is not a choice that the employer has to make. And that is under the Employment Act of 2007, that we have the maternity protection that allows a woman to actually be away for 90 days, okay, paid leave, so that she can be able to be with her baby.
Are those working days or calendar days?
Calendar days. The 90 are calendar days. But then it also leaves her with her annual leave. Previously, we used to have a mother forfeiting her annual leave when she went for maternity leave. But then there was an amendment, and it was actually agreed that a woman will compulsorily take her maternity leave, which is 90 calendar days, and then can in addition take her annual leave. So that gives her about almost 5 months of to exclusively breastfeed her baby or to be with her baby physically. And I think with the plans that we already have in place, then the woman can be supported to express breast milk that she will leave behind as she goes back to work, so that her baby can continue consuming that milk. And the other one is the Breast Milk Substitutes Regulation and Control Act of 2012. And we have regulations of 2021. And this one explicitly speaks about the marketing of what we call breast milk substitutes, okay, to mothers, so that we are not unnecessarily, like endearing mothers to giving alternative feeds as opposed to breast milk. And so this one takes care of the formulas. So like formula manufacturers and companies, they are not supposed to advertise. I don't know whether any of us have seen an advertisement of formula, although we have a lot of violations sometimes. Someone does what we call cross promotion. They're advertising a diaper here, and we see a face of a formula from the same company, probably for an older child, but then it is the message that actually sticks. It also talks about the bottles and the tits. Bottles, ordinarily, they interfere with breastfeeding. Because when a baby feeds from a bottle, it is a silicone teat. And when a baby feeds from that silicone teat, it actually causes what is called nipple confusion. By the time they come back to their mother's nipple, then it feels different. The other one is hard, and probably the flow is better. And the mother's teat is soft, and they have to pull or they have to suck so that the milk actually comes out. And then we have all these, those pacifiers. When you walk around the malls in church, you find babies with things stuck in their mouth and they're always suckling away. So, just a word of caution to parents. As the baby continuously suckles, it creates a lot of pressure in the inner ear, and it's going to give the babies a lot of infections. It causes inflammation in the inner ear, and so the parents are going to always be at the clinic and at the pediatrician with an infection, for an ear infection for the baby. Little do they know that the ones who are actually causing it because of what they are putting in the baby's mouth. So let us avoid all those silicone products, okay, as a way of feeding our babies. Let us rely on either, if the mother is available, let her breastfeed directly from the breast. If she has expressed her milk, let us either cup feed or we do a cup and spoon, so that we still maintain the suckling reflex and we don't confuse the baby. In terms of policy, we have a policy for maternal, infant, and young child nutrition, and this one actually aligns with the global targets for infant and young child feeding. And so those global targets are actually four. And the first one is initiation of breastfeeding within the first hour. The second one is about exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months. And the fourth one is around continued breastfeeding. And I like that Claire had alluded to that earlier. Continued breastfeeding up to 2 years or longer, together with complementary feeding. Complementary feeding is the food that is added to the baby in addition to breast milk once the baby attains their 6 months. And then the final one, the fourth target, is about maternal nutrition and also social and community support. Okay? So if you look at the MIYCN policy, or the maternal, infant, and young child nutrition policy in Kenya, it actually aligns to those four.
Okay.
And to that effect, we have developed different curricula for training of healthcare providers, so that they can be able to align and support technical staff, capacity building for our technical staff at health facility level. And now we have our community health promoters, who are the people who interact directly with the mothers at household level. But this curriculum, it has also encompassed, we even have the private practitioners, like we have Breastfeeding Association of Kenya, which again is allowed to actually talk to mothers and support mothers as long as they align with what the country actually stands for. So I must say that we have our policy environment. There's a good enabling environment to be able to protect, promote, and support breastfeeding, and also to actually support mothers to carry out this very good practice.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Claire, talk to us about the hospital. Are there any mechanisms, or even in private practice, that have been laid out to support and protect breastfeeding?
For the staff in the hospitals, yes, we encourage that there be a breastfeeding lactation room on the minimum. If the company is able to do a cliche, like she had mentioned for several other companies, even better. Because then even for that company, there will be less absenteeism from the new mothers whenever their house girls disappear on them, and they'll be able to focus at work and the milk will flow. Besides that, we encourage rooming in as soon as the baby is born, as opposed to putting the baby in the nursery away from the baby, out from the mother. However, on occasions where there is cesarean section, definitely the baby will be put away But as soon as the mother can be awake, then we put the baby to the breast as soon as it is possible. Yeah, so that is there and it is in policy. So we encourage that every facility has a breastfeeding policy amongst their policies, yeah, for the staff to know what is available for them. And also, as the mothers come to deliver, what is expected. Some mothers will not even want the babies near them. But if it is standard policy from where I have practiced, you've got to room in with the baby immediately that you are awake if you are under anesthesia. Yeah, but after delivery, normal delivery, immediately you stay with the baby.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Esther and Claire, because I believe that we have listened, we have learned, and we are going to connect on our social media and we'll be able to provide them down here, and you can also connect with us. So as we close, Esther, one thing that you believe has worked that you want us to continue with from the previous generation to the current generation. And I've also come to Claire to also just one thing that you want us to carry along from the previous generation.
I know there's been support at family level,
Okay.
and more especially with the mother-in-law, the aunties, the female gender within the social circle of the new mom. So that is something that has really worked, and we need to encourage it. Although we also need to build their capacity so that as they come along to support, they are supporting with what is ideal and what is recommended, so that it does not disrupt the exclusivity of the feeding of this particular child. So something else is religious teachings. So interestingly, when you look at both Christian and Muslim teachings, they have messaging around feeding of young children. And actually, the people who grew up to be great leaders within the religious confines and in the religious books, they somehow fed very well. And one of the things that they fed was actually on breast milk. And I know, like in the Quran, they expressly say that a mother must breastfeed her baby up to the age of 2 years. So it is a religious command, and it has worked, and it is something that we actually advocate and ask that it works. And also, the government policies, okay, that have continuously supported breastfeeding. The support that the mothers get from healthcare providers every time they visit the clinics, and even at the household level. So that is something that is already working, and we commend it, and we ask that it actually continues to be strengthened so that it can work for the mothers.
Thank you. Claire?
For me, what I would say, there is a lot of embracing by the fathers to be part of the process, which is quite encouraging. And as they encourage each other, I am hoping that eventually all the fathers can be part of it, because there's still those who still don't believe breastfeeding should be a man discussion. So we encourage, even as the mothers, the grandmothers, aunties are being empowered on how to support this mother, let also the fathers encourage, including the young children. And if the teachers can be able to even talk about it in the class, let it be a normal conversation wherever they are.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. And breastfeeding is a communal thing. It involves the mother, it involves the father, it involves the women, it involves the men, it involves the society, it involves the government. So all of us must work together in terms of being able to initiate, protect, and also ensure that we promote breastfeeding. This is Science CSA Table. I was your host, Edgar Okoth, and hope to see you in our next conversation. Yeah, thank you and bye for now.